Welcome to Social Justice Paladin, Episode 12, Music, Part 3, End of the Road, a coda of sorts. In this episode, I'll bring us up to date and talk about the current state of contemporary Christian music, maybe tie up a few loose ends, and also give a few examples of some pop songs that I'm currently listening to and why. In the next and final episode of this musical themed series, I'd like to discuss the intersection of music and spirituality, or why does music make us feel the way that it does? As I said in the previous episode, there were quite a few years where all I listened to were praise and worship music and scripture memory songs. And then something happened in the world of contemporary Christian music that seemed to sour the entire genre for me. And the first thing I noticed was that the doctrines in some of the songs are becoming more and more self centered rather than God centered. Also, some songs seem to have been written to be less substance and more fluff. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. I don't know, it just doesn't quite cut it for me. Call me crazy, but it seemed to me that the majority of quote unquote inspirational songs that they played on the radio, you could easily replace God with your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, or wife's name, and the song would hold a similar meaning. But why is this a problem? Aren't we supposed to be in a quote relationship with Jesus? Well, yes, that much is true, and if we keep his commandments, Jesus calls us friends. See John 14. But we cannot at the same time lose sight of who we are singing to and about. He's the King of the universe. And we're told in Proverbs that fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And it just seemed to me that contemporary Christian music had lost its fear and reverence of God in favor of a more fluffy bunny view of Jesus. But then again, I understand why. You can't have it both ways. Christianity is exclusive by its nature, so to sing about Jesus is the only way doesn't quite sit well with our contemporary Oprah-fied Joel Osteen worshiping culture. But that's where the real money is to be made. And so, Christian artists these days have to make a decision. Perform with the quote whole counsel of God in mind, in which you are pretty much condemning your music to being unpopular with a large part of the population, or you can soften and compromise the lyrics to make the lyrics more inclusive and less controversial. So what's the problem with that? Paul says that the cross is an offense. Galatians 5, 7 through 15. We sing not to be purposefully offensive, but with the understanding that some people will outright object the message of Christ. For someone who hasn't submitted to the lordship of Christ, the message of the cross is, quote, foolishness, 1 Corinthians 1:18. Songs shouldn't be watered down to the point that they're lukewarm, see Revelation 3:16, because that just makes everyone want to vomit, Jesus included. As a result of this trend, I started to drift away from a musical diet of solely, quote, Christian music, because in part it was becoming more and more poorly written and decent music was getting harder to come by. I still listen to my old scripture memory songs, but I haven't listened to Christian radio in years now. Over time, I landed on a very few select pop songs that over time became special to me. The best way I can explain it is, the artist wrote the songs with one particular meaning in mind, but since my imagination had been tampered with, or sanctified as I like to put it, parts of these songs took on entirely different meanings than what the artist had originally intended. And here's a short list of songs I listened to in no particular order. Peter Gabriel, Salisbury Hill, Don Henley, Heart of the Matter, Bruce Springsteen, Brilliant Disguise, John Cougar Mellencamp, Human Wheels, Journey, Don't Stop Believin', Oasis, Live Forever and Wonderwall, Martin Page, House of Stone and Light, MC Hammer, Can't Touch This. Isn't he a pastor now? Michael Bublé, Feeling Good and It's a Beautiful Day, Mike and the Mechanics, Silent Running, Ryan Starr, Brand New Day, Sting, Fragile, Thompson Twins, Hold Me Now, Louis Armstrong, What a Wonderful World. Plus, here's a couple others that are just plain old guilty pleasures, like Michael Jackson's Beat It, Aha, Take On Me, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Superstition, the cover song to Stevie Wonder, Tom Petty, Running Down a Dream, and Toto, Africa, and maybe a couple others tossed in. And of course, I've got a couple of other songs that just make my heart want to cry, such as Johnny Cash, Hurt, cover to Trent Reznor, Phil Collins, Against All Odds, Don Henley, Boys of Summer, John Waite, Missing You, Phil Bailey and Phil Collins for Easy Lover, and U2 With or Without You. Don't judge me. And then there's this side list. See if you can tell what the common denominator is. First is Billy Joel, Allentown, Bruce Hornsby, The Way It Is, Don Henley, End of the Innocents, Phil Collins, Another Day in Paradise, and Suzanne Vega for Luca. It took me a while, but I didn't realize that I'd picked these songs out purely because they have a social justice theme to them. Allentown, The Way It Is, Another Day in Paradise, these are all centered around poverty. End of the Innocents is about divorce, and Luca is about child abuse. Now, lots of pop songs deal with social issues. I just thought it was interesting that I pulled these songs out of the proverbial hat and only later realized that I had a solid block of just social justice type songs. And finally, I can't emphasize enough about having some type of a filter when listening to pop music. Music, can lift your spirits or it can make you feel utterly depressed. And remember that one drop of poison in a gallon of water makes the whole thing poison. So if you hear that one drop of poison in your music, there ought to be just a little bell that goes off in your head that says, hang on a second, that's not true. And bonus points to you if you can back it up with a Bible verse. Okay, in the next episode, we'll talk a good bit about music and spirituality. Someone once said, words make you think thoughts, music makes you feel feelings, songs make you feel thoughts. In episode 13, we're going to explore why that is. Thanks for watching.